But if you take the average across the whole of the system, this would reduce to 78 variable and 78 constant. There's a mistake there. I beg your pardon, right? That's just a copying error. That should read 78C plus 22V, okay? So in other words, overall, here, this is where the mistake is. That should be C. Overall, the total surplus value is 110. This is money, by the way. It's not time, it's money. So that means that the average surplus value across the 5 sectors is 22, which means that the average rate of profit is 22%. Okay, this one doesn't make sense, by the way. That again is a bit of an oddity. I have to look at that. So this is the average that really matters. Okay, so what we have is a different rate of profit by the different sectors. But if we aggregated the total surplus value, which is here, and divide that into the total capital advance, which is here, 110 over 500 gives us this 22%. And that's the averaged rate of profit across all the sectors. It's a really important stepping stone in Marx's reasoning, because what he then does is he says, well, let's suppose that the profit rates equalize across the different sectors. Let's suppose that for every 100 capital advance, let's say 100 million pounds for the sake of argument, there will be 22 million pounds profit. So in this sector, the rate of profit is 22%. In this sector, it's 22%, so on and so forth, all the way down the line. Now, then the question comes, what is needed to reach that result? Okay, so in this column, we have the surplus value, which is being produced by the different sectors. Okay, and what we have, again, we could do probably with another column, but what's, I think, hopefully obvious is that we have a column, we could have a column here where the profit is 22, okay? So the profit for each of these sectors is the same, it's 22, 22, 22, 22, okay? But the surplus value is different. So what you have is equal rates of surplus value and equal rates of profit. And to square this circle, the only way that it can be squared is that the actual selling price of the commodities is not the same as their simple value. So for sectors, let's take this one with a very high composition of capital. The simple value of these commodities would be 105. 95C plus 5V plus 5S would give us 105. Or if we take up the example of the used up, we come to 15 cost price plus 5, which is 20. Okay, now, but the price of the commodities is much higher. The price of production of these commodities is much higher than their actual simple value. And this is, if you like, the logical requirement to meet this equal rate of profit. So in this bottom sector, the price of the commodities is much higher than the actual simple value. And conversely, if you take the middle line here, the price of production, Marx calls it, of these commodities is significantly less than their simple value. So that what this shows, what Marx argues, is that surplus value is no longer equal in quantitative terms to profit when you look at it by sector. It is as a totality, but it is different sector by sector. And it's different according to whether that sector's a high or a lower than average organic composition of capital. So what he's actually saying is that there's an equality between the capitals. Each of the capitals will get a similar, or the same, not even similar, will get the same share of the total profit. Okay, so that's what the equalization of the rate of profit does, is it in order for that to work, in the high organic composition sectors and below their simple value in the low organic composition sectors. That's really the essence of Marx's solution. Okay, can you see where the ball is under the cup? As an example of commodity inputs and outputs, okay? And I think that that's quite inputs and outputs. What it is about is how the inner substance of value reaches its outer form in a capitalist system of production. So it's a movement from inner to outer. And as I kind of labored quite a lot in the first lecture, this is an example of a movement from essence to actualized appearance. And in this movement, what you have to ask is, well, what is the inner and what is the outer? And fundamentally, it's of what Marx started out as a very beginning of capitalism, which is how labor, as we saw, we now have to take into account this contradiction between a commodity as a product of labor and a commodity as a product of capital. So if we take this into account, we're reworking the very beginning of capital. But now we're reworking it in terms of how what this does is it actually invites a further reflection on what is the nature of surplus value. Up to now, we think we've got what surplus value is. We know that volume 1 is very much about the production of surplus value. We've become quite confident in the concept. It's a key concept in Marx. In a way, Marx's theory of capitalism is rooted completely in his theory of surplus value. What is surplus value? Surplus value is not just a thing. It's actually a social relation. Surplus value expresses the social relation of labor exploitation in the capitalist mode of production. So, in a quite similar way to the Marx's reading of value as having both a substance and a form, so surplus value has both substance and form, and they're not the same. So the substance of surplus value is and remains surplus labor. The form of expression, of articulation, of presentation to the world of this surplus labor is profit. So surplus value has the form of profit. The contradiction between the commodities being a product of labor and a product of capital works through in the question of the rate of profit. The rate of profit can be seen, can appear as nothing to do with surplus value at all, because all it is a relationship of money capital to itself. It's like 1 million becomes 1.1 million, 200 million becomes 220 million, right? So in the relationship of the rate of profit, which is purely a percentage, if you like, the substance of surplus value is lost and it's mystified. You can't really tell, if you just look at rates of profit, where the profit comes from. Now, I'm going to take what seems to be quite a detour, but I just want to do this in order to explain some issues about how the rate of surplus value relates to the rate of profit. And I'm just going to remind us of I'm aware of the time, but you'll have to be patient with me. My arms are still attached to my hands at this point. What I want to take a slight detour and just as a reminder to talk about the dimensional relationship between money and time in the formation of value. So this diagram is a revival of what we've seen before. The line ABC, which Marx uses directly, is labour time. So AB is necessary labour time, BC is surplus labour time. And what Marx argues is that this becomes a value relation of the commodity, which in turn can be subdivided into surplus value